Hello and welcome to a live kerfuffle break on Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. I'm your host, Keri, and this is a live show that we do Mondays and Fridays at 1 o'clock Central, talk about what's in the news, what's on our mind, and sometimes have guests. Today, we're not going to have a guest. I have one particular topic I want to discuss, and then whatever you guys in the chat are interested in. But thank you for all the returning members and for any new people. If you like the episode, please go back and check out our archives. We have a whole series of deprogrammed interviews where I talk to different people about my old ideology, social justice ideology, also called woke these days. People know it as woke ideology. And I would say start there if you're new. There might be some new people because I have an announcement to make. I was on this, you guys may remember I flew out to Los Angeles to tape something a few weeks ago. I'm bad with time. Maybe it was a month ago. It was a few weeks ago. And I got to see Mr. Mike Harlow when I was there. Anyway, the video that I was there to record, that was the reason I went there, is out now. It's on the Jubilee channel. I haven't posted about it yet here on YouTube. I am going to do that today. I'm going to try and cut some clips from it. But go and watch it after this if you get a chance. It's 30 minutes. It's weird because we were in the room recording for 3 hours, but they edited it down to 30 minutes. Although I think they did a pretty good job of getting a lot of great stuff in there. And I'm having trouble remembering what was cut. So it was a great experience, though. It's for Jubilee. They have this one series they do called Middle Ground, where they bring together 4 people on each side of an issue or something to debate or discuss. And so this episode of Middle Ground was called Former Liberals versus Former Conservatives. And I was one of the former liberals. If you watch this channel regularly, you know I don't really like that kind of label because I still think I'm liberal in a lot of ways. I think that the definition of what's liberal has become so skewed that the word is almost meaningless today because liberal has become associated with, by the left and the right, associated with woke or with social justice, which is very illiberal. It's not liberalism at all. It's about censorship and violence and racism and sexism, and none of that is liberal. So, but given that a lot of people use that term today to describe the left, I understood why they were using it. Anyway, the episode was called Former Conservatives versus Former Liberals, and there were a couple people I already knew who I had interviewed for Deprogrammed. Hunter Avallone was there. He was on the former conservative side. I did an interview with him, which I would also recommend on this channel. It's a great example, I think, of being able to talk with someone who disagrees with you, which is what this video that we were all in was about. Matt Antar was also there on my side, the former liberal side. Matt Antar, I've interviewed him before. He is a guy who woke up during the COVID years in New York, and that's a great conversation as well. I would recommend it. So just a couple of takeaways from that video. I really liked all 4 of the people on the other side, all 4 of the former conservatives. In fact, I plan on we talked afterwards about possibly doing something together. I'd like to have a couple of them at least on the show if they're open to it, to have conversations with people who disagree. But I really liked all of them. I thought they're good people, and even if I think they have a bad ideology or bad ideas on the way things should work, or if I think they're misinformed, whatever, I don't mean for that to sound condescending. I say that it's across the board. It goes both ways, because they probably think that about me, that I have a bad ideology, that I have bad ideas, that I'm misinformed. And this is like a universal thing that all of us tend to think about people we disagree with, right? Of course we do. We think their ideas are wrong, or they're misguided, or they're misinformed, or what have you. But there's a difference between someone having bad ideas or bad ideology and being a bad person with bad character. And sometimes you'll meet people who are both. They have terrible character. They're bad people. They love abusing and taking advantage and whatever. And they have bad ideology and bad ideas. Yes, you will absolutely meet those people. We all can think of many examples of that kind of person. But there are also people, and on Deprogrammed, I'd never want to forget, and I hope you guys listening don't forget, that there are also good people of good character who are sincere with good intentions who have bad ideas or bad ideology. And this doing this debate was a great in-person reminder of that, because I liked all of them. I got a good gut feeling about all of them, and it was a really I saw some of the comments on the video said, "Wow, this is one of the most civil discussions that Jubilee's ever had." Which actually a friend texted me, who was on one of the other ones, Sarah Higdon. She was on the trans conservatives versus trans liberals one, and she was like, "This panel's like very sedate," because theirs was like a lot of contentious back and forth. They had a crazy SJW on that one. Anyway, go check it out. I think that's it. That's all I need to say about that, at least for now. But yeah, I'll try to get some clips up. So I'm just checking out the chat. Beard says, and for me, it's the person with bad ideology, but a good person that are the hardest to deal with. Oh, that's so interesting, Beard. Because I actually find those people I enjoy talking to them the most, because I know that they're capable of changing their opinion. If they are sincerely like a good person, a good character, they treat others well, they behave well, but they speak bad ideas, ideas can change. But if you're talking with one of the ones that's like morally corrupt, if you're talking to someone who's like just a bad person with a bad character, bad behavior, if they're an abuser, a con artist, whatever, and they also speak bad ideas, like that's a waste of time. I can't stand talking to those people. So that's funny, because I'm the opposite of you. I really like talking to the ones who are sincere. Okay. So there's one other. Oh, Andrew Joyner for £5. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the super chat. He says, I'm loving the tea cozy. Is that the hat? Is that my hat? This hat, I should say, make another announcement. This one was it was made by Weird and Wonderful EWE on Instagram, also called Lily. Lily made this hat. It was part of Blocked Magazine, which is the really problematic knitting and crochet magazine. It was in their June issue. If you want to go back, all of their issues are free. You can find them online. If you want to get the pattern for this hat, and there were 3 different ones that people made, and this is the one that Lily made. I love it. So just give a little plug for Blocked Magazine there. They rule. Okay. There was one other announcement. Oh, this is just on a personal note. I want to thank you if you are someone who supports the channel. I know I forget to plug it a lot, and I'm going to try and get better at it. But I really appreciate it. It's completely, of course, voluntary. I guess that's why I don't plug it as much, because I just kind of feel like if people want to, they will. But we do have ways, if you want to and you're able to support the channel financially with a subscription, you can do so for as little as $1 a month. Every dollar helps us. You can do so at locals, here at YouTube, at Patreon, at Subscribestar. And I want to thank the people who do that, because thank you so much, because we're about to start renovating this studio room. I'm so excited. My husband and I have bumped this room up on the list, and you may not know this because maybe you like the background and everything. And I do love this quilt. This is from the Knitters. They made this wedding quilt for my husband and I, and it's the most beautiful gift I've ever received, ever, my whole life. There's like 50 different squares here from 50 different people, different countries, all put together. Taxterra put it all together in this beautiful quilt, and I love it. However, the reason it's hanging up right there and kind of sloppy and everything is because This room is, well, you can kind of see it, I think, on part of the video. There's peeling wallpaper. We we originally started demoing this room, and then we moved it down on the list of rooms that we're renovating. So we did the guest bath and the master bedroom first. And anyway, long story short, we bumped this room up on the list, and it's very exciting because right now this room is such a mess. Like everything from the other rooms that we're working on gets put in here. So there's boxes of soundproofing material and sheetrock, and there's a fireplace mantle that we already disassembled from the wall, and there's this exposed wall here. Anyway, there's boxes of stuff that needs to be unpacked, and it's just a mess. And you guys may not know it, but when I come in this room, it does not feel conducive to conversation and the way that I want it to feel. It doesn't feel like my old studio room in my old house that was ready. It was fixed the way I fixed it the way I wanted it. It was a very comfortable space. And I kind of I like what Jordan Peterson says about making your room reflects your mental state, and setting a room up for the purpose that it's intended for. So for this room, for example, I want it to be a studio room, not this current messy catch-all with, just stuff everywhere. And I think once we anyway, we're going to start tonight. We're going to start moving stuff out of this room, and we're going to start working on it this week. And so the show's schedule will continue. I'm just going to set up a temporary streaming space upstairs in one of the guest rooms, most likely. And that'll probably be for a few weeks until we get this room done. We have to patch the floors, strip the floors, stain them, sheetrock 2 of the walls, remove a door. There's so much, the ceiling and a light fixture. There's a lot. So I think maybe a couple weeks is what we're thinking. But I'm very excited. Yes, Dion, currently this room is the junk room. I hate it. So yes, we're going to clean your room. Hello, Epic Mike. Hey, thanks for hanging out. John, how many different rooms do y'all need to renovate? Oh, man. Well, we've done 3. We still need to do the studio room, the kitchen, the master bath. We have to finish the master closet, the foyer upstairs, or the sitting area, I guess you would call it, the 2 guest bedrooms, and we still have to finish Anthony's studio. It's halfway done, so that's 8. And the dining room, 9, and the whole outside exterior, because the exterior is the balcony and everything needs to be replaced. It's rotting. There's a lot, man. It's going to take a couple of years. We're doing it in this, we have a list of priorities, and sometimes things get moved around. Like this room got moved back up, so yay. Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot of rooms. It is. This is an old house with a lot of rooms, and we got a great deal on it. If you haven't heard the story of the house, I won't go into the whole thing, but it's nobody had lived here for 40 years. So we had to get people to come and do the foundation, put in heating and air, fix the electricity, put in plumbing, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it's a process. Best way to test a marriage, renovation, says Eric Mike. Yeah, Eric Mike. Epic Mike. Yes. Okay. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about moral judgment. And I've got some notes here. I'm going to try and just bear with me as I try and articulate what it is I want to say. If there are any people who are watching from the left, especially if there's new visitors from the Jubilee channel or what have you, if you've spent any amount of time on the left, like I did, I was in the social justice part of the left specifically, also called woke these days. I was in that part of the left for about 20 years. If you've spent that much time on the left, you've probably picked up this idea that making moral judgments is wrong. And I would say, even if you're not in the social justice part of the left, you're just on the left, you're a liberal, you've probably, without realizing it, incorporated some of that into things that you believe. I say this because I've had lots of conversations with people on the left some very good people on the left who sometimes this will come up in conversation where they say, well, we'll be talking about something that's, I would argue, objectively wrong, behavior that's objectively wrong. And they'll say things to the effect of, well, but I don't want to judge anyone. Okay. So if you are on the left, you've probably picked up part of this idea, making moral judgments is wrong and we shouldn't do that, right? Couple things I want to point out. I used to be one of those people who thought that, who had adopted that belief. Oh, we shouldn't judge people. Don't make moral judgments. You shouldn't judge behaviors. You shouldn't judge actions or lifestyles or anything. It's bad. The glaringly obvious, I hope it's glaringly obvious thing here. Maybe it's not. It's not for a lot of people on the left, I think. The glaringly making a moral judgment is wrong is itself a moral judgment. Stay with me here if you're on the left. You are calling something wrong. You are judging it as wrong. You are making a moral judgment. It's kind of funny, but it's also really important. The reason I'm pointing it out is because you do it. We all do it. It's absurd to think that you should, or that you even can, go through life without making moral judgments. You've just Oh, am I cutting out? Sorry, somebody said my internet's going out. Let me know if you can see me. Hey, horny Alf. Hey, what's up? Am I dropping out again? Oh no, I don't know why it's on okay, hold on. Let me see if I can. It appears to be on the Wi-Fi, which it shouldn't be on. Let me see if I can switch it. Okay, am I back now? Oh. YouTube trying to silence Keri. This happened when I did the video about what is woke too. Do you remember? John, it is wired. If you can see me, I apologize for the technical problems. This is why I'm very excited that we're going to get this studio completed and fixed up, and the lights and everything fixed up. Can you see me now? Ninja Kitty. Hello, Ninja Kitty. Says I was on Benjamin Boyce and you obey what's cutting the stream. Oh, I don't think anybody's cutting the stream. I think it's just tech problems. So you guys can see me now, correct? Okay. Oh, thank you, Brahma Bull. This sucks. I'm sorry. Okay, let's pick up where we were. What I was trying to say, and I'll just restate it quickly. Bros and Bros, were you on Jubilee? Yes, I talked about that at the beginning. If you missed it, probably because I was cutting out. So this is what I was trying to say. If you've spent any amount of time on the left, like I did, you've probably adopted part of this idea that it's a bad thing to make moral judgments about actions or behaviors or lifestyles. And I was pointing out, if you happen to be on the left and you're watching this, you already make moral judgments. We all do. Because saying that making moral judgments is bad, saying that it's wrong, that is itself a moral judgment. It's a funny thing to point that out, but it's also really important to help illustrate that for people who think they don't make moral judgments. Yes, you do. We all do. If you're in social justice and woke, you make a lot of moral judgments. For example, a lot of you, the ones who are sincere, the ones who are in it because you think it's about ending racism and sexism. I'm talking about the ones who are sincere, not the bad ones, the bad eggs in there. But the good people who are in it, who in my opinion are misguided about what that ideology is. You think racism and sexism is wrong. That's a moral judgment that I agree with. You think judging other people's wrong, that's a moral judgment. So we all make them. My question for you is this, if you're on the left. So, well, first let me state before I ask the question, here's something I think is happening. We've talked about on this show about how social justice and woke effectively almost like a toxic individual, almost like a sociopath. This ideology is sociopathic in a way because it over time grooms you to get rid of your survival instinct and to disable your gut instinct, your survival instinct by telling you, essentially programming you to think that that instinct is somehow implicitly biased or racist or sexist if the person that is triggering that instinct happens to be in a group that is considered marginalized by the ideology, right? And in that episode where we talked about that, we specifically talked about some of these recent cases in the news, these headlines in the news, where social justice activists had been murdered by people who are in marginalized groups. And there've been several of these in the news recently. One of them was captured on video. And we talked about that video and how he walked his fiance into a dangerous situation towards a dangerous individual who was screaming at him and destroying scooters at 3 a.m. on the side of the road, walked his fiance towards that dangerous individual. And I think he probably did it because that individual was Black. And because he had been programmed, like I was, in the woke cult, programmed to believe, oh, but if I listen to my natural instinct that says don't walk towards him, then it makes me a racist because he happens to be Black. And so over time, it disables these natural instincts that are there, that have evolved in humans over time to protect us. I'll give the analogy that Jordan Peterson gives sometimes, the monkey analogy. A baby monkey, the first time it sees a snake, it already knows how to react. It's got a built-in survival instinct and gut instinct about a snake. That's evolved over time. We have a survival instinct that if you're in the woke left, I think you're in danger of turning it off because you're being told, well, don't listen to that voice if the person is Black or gay or trans or a woman or whatever, because that means I'm being sexist or racist or homophobic. And that's dangerous for you because you will walk yourself into life-threatening situations. Okay, so we've already talked about that. There's a video about that. If you want to go back and watch it, I'll link it below after we're done here. But what I want to talk about today is something similar to the way in which woke ideology causes people who are in it to disable their survival instinct or their gut instinct. I think it also causes them to disable their natural disgust sensitivity, their natural revulsion at immoral behavior. I think it does this very similar thing here. I think that they are told, I was told when I was in it, everything goes. And if you have a natural revulsion to some kind of immoral behavior, that's prejudice, that's implicit bias. And I'm going to give you an example. Some of you know I did an episode already about this developing story out of Alabama. I'm working on another video about this. I cannot stop thinking about this story. It bothers me so much. It's the Bubba Copeland story. You can watch, I talked about it at the end of the episode called The Problem with Porn. And then I cut that section. I cut that clip out and posted it here on this channel. So you can watch just the clip if you want. It's called Perverted Pastor. This guy, Bubba Copeland, so he was a pastor and mayor in this small town, Smith Station, Alabama. And turns out the entire time that he was mayor and pastor of the Phoenix City First Baptist Church in neighboring Phoenix City, he was secretly had this double life and was making all kinds of sissy transgender porn, dressing as a woman, taking photos of himself, posting to all of these different trans and gender erotica, sissy porn sites on Reddit, boards on Reddit. And he didn't stop there. He didn't stop just with the pictures of himself. He was also writing and posting the most disgusting, objectively disgusting, morally bankrupt, filthy, disturbingly evil porn. He was writing stories about murdering real women that he knew in his town, and so that he could transition into looking just like them and take their place and trick their husband into having sex with him. These are women that he was friends with, that his wife was friends with. He posted these women's pictures on porn sites with their real name, used the real name of their businesses. Some of these women, these victims, have now spoken to the news, the only news that will cover this, which is one local TV station down there, WWTVM. They've covered it. The Daily Mail's covered it. 1819 News, which is a conservative outlet, has covered it, and Redux has covered it. Oh, and the New York Post just picked it up. 5 outlets. But these 2 of his victims spoke with WTVM News and said, look, my image and my name are on like 9 porn sites now. I'm still dealing with this. He also took pictures of little children, boys and girls from his hometown, without their knowledge, and he made porn images with them where he fantasized about little boys turning into little girls. This was what got him off. He posted this in porn forums called gender erotica. Okay, that's a combination of gender transitioning, gender ideology, and erotica. That's for guys, these autogynophiles who call themselves trans, but they're really just perverts who get off on imagining themselves as women. That's what makes them come. And they get off on imagining little boys turning into girls. He posted other porn about little boys. He would post pictures of local children in his town with things that said, take the hormones, become a whore. The parents of one of these kids found out about it when it was reported on 1819 News and saw his kid's face on there. 1819 News didn't even know it was a real kid from his town until the dad contacted them and was like, can you please blur the image? That's my kid. So this pastor and mayor was leading this double life, was victimizing secretly women and children in his town, was getting up there every Sunday in that pulpit. And you can go watch his sermons on the Phoenix City Baptist Church YouTube channel. He was getting up there every Sunday and pretending to be a good shepherd for this church while he lived in depraved sin. And what I've seen happen since this story came out, well, 2 things. One thing, the story came out because 1819 News covered it. They're a conservative outlet. And after they covered it, this guy went up in the pulpit on Sunday again. You can watch his last sermon. Went up in the pulpit and boldly and arrogantly, full of himself, told his congregation that he was the subject of an internet attack and that he and his wife were just posting things. He was posting things with his wife's knowledge, just to have a bit of fun, like humor, and that he has nothing to be ashamed of. He said that. He said that. When your darkness is revealed to you and to the rest of the world in this case, You have an opportunity if you are a professed believer like he was. Okay, I'm not talking to the non-believers here. I know there's non-believers in the audience. I'm talking to Christians. You have an opportunity from God to humble yourself finally. It should be. It's like your rock bottom moment, okay? I've had a rock bottom moment. I've had 2. One of them is when I found God. When you hit that rock bottom, you have an opportunity to humble yourself and cry out for help from something bigger than you. To beg forgiveness for your sins, for your wrongdoings. To admit, to take responsibility for what you've done wrong, and to ask for help and say, "I can't fix this on my own. I need help. Are you there, God? Does God exist?" That was what I asked during my first rock bottom moment. This pastor didn't do that. He didn't get up there on his last Sunday sermon, and he didn't get down on his knees and beg for forgiveness from his congregation who he deceived for years, leading them astray. Like the Pharisees, like the whitewashed tombs in the Bible. That's what this pervert was doing every Sunday, leading them astray. Somebody who's been defending him online said to me, well, he never preached about against any of the things he was doing in secret. So it's fine. He's not a hypocrite because he never preached against any of those things. Are you freaking kidding me? That's the problem. That's the point. He wasn't preaching from the Bible. He was leading his congregation astray. And so he got up there in his last sermon, said he had nothing to be ashamed of, and then he killed himself 2 days later. So you did have a lot of shame, didn't you? And you had a huge ego, didn't you? You couldn't bring yourself to accept what you did, to accept responsibility for it, to humble yourself, to allow God to forgive you. God can forgive all things. He can even forgive that depravity and what you were doing. He could have forgiven all of that if you had humbled yourself and said, I messed up on this extraordinary scale. Can you help me? I'm ashamed. He didn't do that. He'd rather take himself out of this world because he doesn't actually believe God's capable of forgiving that. And he's not willing to admit he did anything wrong. And so you know what happened after this? After he killed himself? All the mainstream news did articles and headlines. The Washington Post, all of them, CBS, NBC, all of them. Oh, grief follows. I think one of the headlines was grief follows this pastor's suicide. And offers a warning of the dangers of anti-LGBTQ rhetoric. What? There are all of them, including celebrities like George Takei. They're ignoring all of the porn he was writing about murdering local women. They're ignoring the images he used in disgusting transition porn with children from his town. They're ignoring the porn he posted with names and images from the women in his town. They're just talking about the cross-dressing. Okay, because I'm bringing this back home to the subject. Because in woke, they see the cross-dressing and they go, he's in a marginalized community. Oh, he must be trans. They're calling him a trans woman. He said he wasn't trans when he was exposed. He said, I wasn't trans. This was something he did at home to relieve stress and to have a bit of humor. But it doesn't matter if he's trans or not. What he was doing was vile and depraved and immoral and an abuse of trust and an abuse of those women and children he was taking advantage of and putting up on the internet so that him and other perverts could masturbate to them. And doing it while pretending to be a good shepherd in a Christian church and to have beliefs. He doesn't have any beliefs. This guy was living in sin. He didn't. Somebody said to me, the reason I'm so outraged is because I think this ideology has made such an intrusion into the mainstream that there are people who've bought into this idea. I can't judge any behavior. I can't judge it, especially if he's in a protected group. He's in a marginalized group. There are left-wing sites like Occupy Democrats now. They are posting They are posting podcast interviews with people defending him, and they are not telling their viewers on the left in their bubble, they're not telling them about the porn he was writing and the images he was using of women and children. Why? They're keeping that information from them, and they're seriously presenting this guy as like, oh, he's a poor trans woman, innocent trans woman who killed himself because he got outed as a trans woman. No, that is not the story. He killed himself because he was overcome with shame and couldn't get out of his own ego enough to ask forgiveness for his perverted, depraved behavior and lifestyle, for his double life. The warning of the danger that comes from this story, that headline would be better written if it said, warning of the dangers of porn addiction, gender ideology, and leading a double life. That's what this story is about. But all over the internet, people who've only read about the cross-dressing part are currently lecturing others. Can you imagine left-wing sites defending this pastor? There's photos of this pastor and mayor with Trump, okay? Bubba Copeland took photos with Trump. He was a conservative. He was a white Christian man and a pastor. Can you imagine the left giving up an opportunity to dunk on hypocrisy from a white Christian male Republican Trumper pastor? They're giving up that opportunity to dunk on him. Why? Oh, because he cross-dressed in secret. So now they're whitewashing all of his behavior. They're whitewashing all of it. There's a reason Jesus called it whitewashed tombs. This man was a whitewashed tomb, standing up there pretending to be one thing, wearing a mask, while he was the exact opposite at home. For how long was he doing that? Years. Okay, so now there are reports coming out, anonymous reports coming out in some of the Facebook groups about this, from locals who are saying, hey, he also sexually abused me or someone I know when he was pastor of the youth group. So now there are anonymous reports coming out about this. None of those, as far as I know, have talked to the press yet. I hope they do. They're anonymous reports, so don't put any stock in them. I'm good with that caveat. But there are people saying, oh, the reason he took his own life was because there's also a lot more that hasn't come out yet. And meanwhile, the people defending him and running cover for him, they don't want anything to come out. And they're like, if you talk about this, you're a transphobe. If you talk about any of the things he was doing, you're a transphobe. And you're anti-LGBTQ and you're a bigot. Wrong. Do you think gay people or trans people who have experienced gender dysphoria, this idea that this feeling that they're in the wrong body, do you think they deserve to carry the weight of this man's sins and behavior so that they can be used as a deflector shield for criticism of this man's perversion? Why are you going to put that on their shoulders? Screw you. He's responsible for his behavior. Sorry, I have a lot of anger about this case. You can tell. I haven't been this upset about something in a long time, and I think it's because he was a pastor, because he was leading his flock astray, and I've seen people in some of these forums who are saying that they are having a crisis of faith now because of this monster and because of the people who claim to be Christian who are covering up his sins. How dare you? This is why Jesus said in the Bible, if anyone leads any of these little ones, those who believe in me, astray, it would be better for them if a millstone were tied around their ankle and they were thrown into the sea. Jesus said that. Jesus said that. Do you know why? That's how angry wolves in shepherd's clothing made him. What he was saying there is that horrible fate, having a millstone tied around their ankle and being thrown into the sea, is better for them than what's actually awaiting them. What was awaiting Bubba Copeland. There are people in some of these groups who claim to be Christian who have been swayed by or adopted this leftist idea that we can't make a moral judgment on his behavior. A moral judgment's wrong. I believe some of them probably have the gut instinct of revulsion when they look at this porn that he was making, this trans porn, this porn that was fetishizing little boys transitioning. He was wanking and getting off to the idea of little boys transitioning. And if you look at any of that disgusting depravity he was posting or the stories he was posting, I don't you would have to be very far gone not to have that revulsion, that natural instinct at revulsion. You would have to be as far gone as him in the darkness. And I'm concerned with the people who aren't that far gone in the darkness. People who, though, have allowed this idea to seep into them where they feel like they've been programmed that they have to get rid of any natural instinct at revulsion, moral revulsion or judgment, because because that's somehow a sign that they're a bigot or they're transphobic. It's not. It exists for a reason. It's like a predator detection system. And it's a guardrail for you in your life so that you don't fall into depraved behavior. I'll tell you a personal example. When I was a non-believer, I had adopted this idea that like making moral judgments is wrong. And being in the woke cult, like any cult, it's a matter of degrees. It happens slowly. You move into it slowly, you accept new things slowly. It's not all at once. And so over time, I was in it for 2 decades. I had accepted this idea that, you know, that religion, that Christianity in particular was somehow it was so backwards and judgmental and um that it was bad to declare certain behaviors immoral. Leftists believe this, some of them do. While at the same time, there's that cognitive dissonance because they believe things are immoral. They believe racism is immoral and sexism is immoral, and they believe it's immoral to pass moral judgment, right? Weird, right? But so I had adopted that over time. And one thing that happens if you adopt that over time is that you yourself will start to engage in behavior that you never could have seen yourself engaging in, or that you never would have thought you would do. And I think that's because your idea of what's right and wrong isn't hinged on anything anymore. At least it wasn't for me. And you're encouraged to question things like, well, why is that considered wrong or immoral? And to justify things. I just want to highlight this from Brahma Bull because I this is spot on. He says, Christ didn't hang out with prostitutes and criminals. He converted them and told them to sin no more. That wasn't acceptance of the sin. Yes, thank you. He loved them, and because he loved them, he told them the truth. When you love someone, you tell them the truth. Um, but the point I was making, yeah, so if you stay there long enough in that place of moral relativity, you will start to bend the rules. You will start to if you don't have any guardrails, what's to stop you from that slow slide into evil? What is to stop you? Someone was arguing with me online, someone who is a frequent commenter on my page. I like a lot of stuff they've said in the past. I respect them, but this argument, they're a non-believer, and so they were saying, they disagree with me when I've said in the past that if a person worships reason, they're just worshiping themselves. And so that relates to this topic. So I just wanted to pull that out and talk about that for a second. Not every atheist worships reason. I was talking about people who specifically say they do. So some people I've met say they worship reason. They say that's their higher power. That's the thing bigger than them. That's they determine all of their morals through reason. Okay. Hmm. I would say that if you're worshiping if you think you're worshiping reason, you're worshiping your own ability to reason. So you're worshiping yourself. I saw this happen with someone I knew who said they worshiped reason. I thought they weren't capable of things that they turned out to be capable of. Lying, cheating, backstabbing, horrible things. Stealing, horribly immoral things. And I tried to understand it, and over time, I think what I realized is that, oh, they were able to justify and reason all of this out, why it was okay to do this. Because they told me reason was their higher power or the thing that they worshiped, that they put at the top, right? Instead of God, they put reason there. So they just reasoned it out. It's okay to do this immoral thing because reason is what determines my morals, right? And I can reason out why it's okay to do it. That's what happened. And so what I was saying with this person who was arguing with me, in my comments was God provides a guardrail. God is Chesterson's fence, okay? God is, there's that what's it called? Anecdote about Chesterson's fence where if you see a fence, don't start pulling out the fence post until you know why the fence is there. Something bad might happen, right? What's the fence there to keep out, right? God functions as if a person's sincere and they believe sincerely, God functions as that fence post. It's something higher than you that your morality stems from. It's not you deciding. It's written down in the Bible. It's not you deciding. And it is wrong of you to be flexible with God's rules. It's not coming from you. It's not dependent on your ability to justify it and rationalize it. And now what this person was saying to me is, yeah, but there are lots of people who've used God to justify bad behavior. Yes, of course. Yes, yes. I've always say that. That's why I'm so angered by this story about this pastor. That's why I spend so much time talking about con artists in the faith. They are revolting to me. Yes, there are con artists. I'm not talking about them. Set them aside. I'm talking about sincere believers. If you have a sincere belief in God, who's something higher than you, that your morality comes from, if you're a Christian who's looking at the Bible and saying, these things mean something, I'm going to try and hold myself to this. You're going to fail. You're going to stumble. We all sin, but you're not going to be able to live in sin. The Holy Ghost won't let you. You're not going to be able to do what this pastor Bubba Copeland was doing. The Holy Ghost won't let you. You might stumble, but you're not going to live in sin. Somebody on one of these forums tried to tell me, he just made a mistake. Why is everyone going? He just made a mistake. No, no, a mistake is forgetting to lock your house when you leave. Like, he did not make a mistake. He didn't have one or two dalliances with this kind of porn and then repent and beg for help and do the responsible thing and step down from his position as pastor and get help from elders in his church. He didn't do that. He lived in that sin. He lived in it. It was who he was. It was what he worshiped, himself and this depravity. If you sincerely have a belief in what you say you believe when you're a Christian, you cannot live in the sin. Because you worship God, because you're owned by God. God owns you, not the devil. You're a slave to God. And the thought of rejecting God's grace and forgiveness and staying there in that place of rejection of it while you live in that sin, it's intolerable. So, yeah, a bit of levity. A bit of levity from Tree Surgeon. Sorry, we need one. Tree Surgeon says, "Whoops, I watched CP again." Yeah, that's how they're presenting this pastor. Whew, he just made a mistake. He just made a mistake. What? Oh, man, I'm emotionally disturbed by the story. Clearly, it continues to bother me. It's a good thing. Look, the silver lining, it's a good thing because it's helping me. I'm learning a lot and it's helping me articulate some thoughts on this about morality and the benefits of having a sincere belief in a creator who set out a list of divine rules, guidelines, because he loves us so much that he wants us to follow. Not because he's some authoritarian dictator who's like, I'm going to take away their fun. No, because he's trying to point us towards the best, most joyful, beautiful way of living so that we don't have to learn these things like I did by testing the boundaries when I was woke and living without God and testing all the boundaries of morality and learning the hard way about why these things are things you shouldn't do. Someone else said to me during this argument about this pastor, they said to me and some of the people who were calling out his behavior, they said, "Oh, you bunch of self-righteous, moral dude. What's in your closet? What kind of if how would you like it if your skeletons were pulled out? Oh, you just bunch of self-righteous." But no, you don't get it. It's not self-righteous as a Christian to have a standard by that we hold ourselves to and our pastors to. That standard God gave us. It doesn't come from us. It's not self-righteous. It's God's righteousness, and we're trying to hold ourselves to it. You know why? Because we are weak and broken, sinful people. That's why it's important that I hold myself and my leaders to that. It's because I am do you understand? It's not because I'm some great moral creature. It's because I'm not. It's because I'm not. Duh. I'm kind of laughing because it's kind of astounding to me, the people and the other that don't get it. We have these standards. I take this very seriously and try to hold myself to it, and of course I hold my pastors to it, because without it, I know what evil I'm capable of. Oh my goodness, do I know. You are a self-righteous person who thinks you don't need God or something bigger than yourself, whatever that is that you hold yourself to, something outside of yourself. You are self-righteous. You think you're just so great and moral. You're such a good, special human. You're created differently than us that you don't need that. You're just evolved. You're so evolved and smart and moral on your own. No, you're not. I'm sorry, but you're not. You're not any different than us. And man, you are in dangerous waters like I used to be in. You're in dangerous waters if you think you can just reason your own way into some morality and set up your own guardrails and make sure you don't become this monster and doing things that you think are wrong. Like, what is to stop you? What is to stop you? There's nothing bigger than you, right? I told that person, I was like, yeah, skeletons in my closet. Yeah. I watched porn. I was sexually immoral. I was an alcoholic. Yeah. I lived in a lot of sin when I didn't have God. A lot of sin. You got me. It's so dumb. What was in your past? Yes, lots of sin. It's like you don't even get it. It's hard to have a conversation with some non-believers, not all. There are some non-believers who they even though they don't believe in God, but they understand the distinctions that believers have between, like, I mean, the Bible talks about your old self and putting on the new self. You're born again. God forgives all of that sin, all of that depravity. He could have forgiven the depravity of this pastor. And when you're a Christian, yes, you will sin. You will still sin. You will stumble. You might even live in a sin for a period of time, but God will bother you about it unless you totally turn your face away from him. He will bother you about it. And this is why it's so important, if you're a Christian, that you have good, upstanding men in these positions of leadership as your elders, as your pastor. Because you have to have someone, another believer, you you need them to help, to pray for you, to help hold you accountable when they see you stumbling. You need these people. Shame on Bubba Copeland, and shame on anyone in that church who knew what he was doing and did not take it to the elders. I think that's enough for ranting. Like I said, I am working on a video about, I just wanna do a concise video with the facts of this story, this specific story, Bubba Copeland story, because the mainstream media is ignoring it, and I think that's troublesome. Wikipedia is editing it. If you go and try to put these facts in there, they edit it. They take it out. They say, "Oh, the sources you are using are not on they're on our deprecated source list. Oh, that looks like a conservative site." Well, yeah, that's convenient, isn't it? If the mainstream news won't report on it, then it won't be allowed to be in Wikipedia. Wow, that's a think about how, apply that to the COVID years, like, pretty easy to censor information you don't want out there if you just decide you're only gonna allow things to be up if they're reported by CNN. Thank you for allowing me to do a bit of a focused topic on morality, and, this was the question I wanted to ask. I went off on a tangent about the pastor, man. Here's the question I wanted to ask people on the left. What happens when you have a survival instinct or a gut instinct or a moral revulsion about the behavior of someone who's not in one of these so-called marginalized groups? What happens? Do you listen to it? If it's a straight white man, do you listen to that survival instinct or moral revulsion? I would just ask you to think about that for a minute. And then my next question for you is, could you imagine, if you're on the left, could you imagine what possible pitfalls might there be in an ideology disabling your survival instinct or your natural moral revulsion at certain behavior? What are some possible pitfalls of that? How could it be abused? So, if you're watching, you happen to be on the left and you're watching and you didn't check out in hate already, please leave those answers below. I would like to read them. And if you disagree with me and you're on the left about any of this, feel free, comment, leave a comment. I would like to hear about it. If you have questions, if you think you know something especially if you think, "Oh, no, this in the Bible, what you're saying is wrong. Here's why." Put it in the comments. I wanna see it. I have great gratitude for all of you who are hanging out with me today, and, great gratitude for the non-believers who listened to this episode and stuck with it. I appreciate you guys. And, Robert Lauer, give it up for one of our mods, Robert says, "If you didn't rage quit, please hit the like button or the dislike button." Thank you, Robert. Robert, I'm so excited. We're gonna build the studio room. Next time you come visit, you'll have to help us with the tech, like, make sure it's all working nice. Um somebody, I saw it, but I can't find it now, but somebody said they like the Mary statue. Yeah, I had some Halloween things back there, and then when I got rid of them for November, I just was trying to put something back there. This Mary statue I found at a junk shop, a thrift shop in New Hampshire. I was there for uh it was some kind of conference or something, and got to visit a couple of antique shops and found that, and I was like, I don't care how I'm doing it. I'm smuggling this on the plane somehow. I will, even if I have to carry it the whole way home. It's like the top hat I found in Switzerland. Like, I will get this home. And I love it. It's not, I mean, that's not where it's gonna live. This whole room's gonna be redone, but it will live somewhere. I thought it was just such a peaceful, serene uh little statue. So you guys, thanks for hanging out today. Mr. Obvious says God has to be some kind of comedian. Yes. See, I think all like laughter, God gives us that as a gift. So of course he has a sense of humor. God has a sense of humor a lot with me. Um, music, all of these things come from God. Okay. Thanks for hanging out. I'm gonna post a little bit later today about the Jubilee video if you wanna go and check it out. Again, it's 30 minutes. It's called Former Liberals versus Former Conservatives, and it's out. It came out last night. And I think that's it with the announcements. I appreciate you guys hanging out, and I will see you on Wednesday. We'll be back at our regular time for a live pop culture at 8 o'clock Central on Wednesday. And I'll be reporting from some other temporary location while we work on this room. But I'll see you that night with Mystery Chris. So thank you guys. Take care.